good morning, and welcome to this week's Tuesday Chew. It's Tuesday, and we're going to chew over some interesting things. So, if you are up for being slightly, I suppose, challenged, maybe a few thoughts on the whole kind of problems that business is going into at the moment, especially around the whole getting the right people into the business in the right way at the right time to be able to help you to grow and maybe even just to survive in what is now looking like it's going to be a fairly challenging time over the coming months. And you'll hear an awful lot about this on LinkedIn at the moment. You'll hear things about talent acquisition, which is a phrase that some people really like, but most people really don't. And you'll hear things about human capital, which is a phrase that, again, some people really like, but most people really don't. Human resources, all those kinds of things. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that, why those phrases actually are pregnant with both meaning and sometimes with misinterpretation. And also how, as business leaders, business owners, and indeed business people, we can get the very best for our businesses, and maybe not just survive through what are likely to be quite challenging times, but maybe even thrive as a result of being an employer of choice. So my name is Matthew Dashper-Hughes, and I'm here with...
My name's Roy Johnson. Always a pleasure to be back on the Tuesday Chew. I just love the way that rings, Tuesday Chew. And I've got a little bit of a public health warning here. I was talking with Matthew a few minutes before this started, and I was getting a little bit agitated and sweary. So it's possible that this could be 18 rated and not for the faint-hearted, because I have an opinion or two on this, and I'll say up front, not everyone is going to agree, and that's okay. But I do have quite strong opinions on what we're going to talk about. So switch off now if you're of delicate disposition.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
So I mean, this thing started, and if I was organised, I'd have my bit of paper with me. But this thing started from something I got last week. I was talking to Matthew about, and it was from McKinsey Global Institute. Human Capital at Work, which is a cracking little document. But there's a few things that we've also seen, and something that Matthew and I were talking about yesterday from Deloitte. Matthew.
Yeah, so this is like a weekly thing that I get from Deloitte's. This guy called Ian Stewart who puts this out every single week. And the point that he was making, there we go. Eddie says, I love the 18 plus rating. Absolutely. Yeah, not for the faint hearted. There will be some non-PC comments here today, I'm afraid. But that's where we're at. So yeah, what he was saying is that very much as we know, there are challenging times ahead. But the point that Ian was making is the first time in 30 years he's been following the Bank of England, where they've produced a growth forecast that is so much weaker than market forecasts. So up until like last Thursday, all but 2 of the 21 forecasters out there surveyed were saying that actually the UK economy is probably likely to expand next year. But the Bank of England comes out and says there's a forecasting a 1.5% contraction in GDP in 2023 and a 5-quarter recession, which feels like talking ourselves into a massive negative, which is interesting, because the flip side of that is you've also got this real challenge, which most businesses who are being interviewed at the moment say the biggest challenge they've got is finding good people. In fact, finding people, full stop, getting a bum on a seat. And the problem with when you do that kind of bum on a seat recruitment is you typically get a bum on a seat, which is always great. So how do you become an employer of choice? How do you find the right sorts of people? There we go. Eddie says that 80% of statistics are made up. I heard it was 81.5, but I'm not going to argue. There you go. Keep going.
I mean, I think it is a great subject to talk about, and just going back, I must admit I didn't think the Bank of England were particularly helpful, because it did sound like a self-fulfilling prophecy that we're going to go into recession, and I can see a lot of people hiding behind that as an excuse not to sell stuff. There's a recession coming. That's why I can't sell stuff. And I used to work for a guy many years ago. He was a great guy, and I was pretty new in sales. Not that young, but new. And he said, hey, look, it's pretty simple for a business. If the market isn't out there, why do I need you? And if you can't sell, why do I need you? So, we've got to do something. If there's going to be a recession, and a recession generally contraction, well, it's a contraction of the economy, not generally, always. The slice of your pie is potentially going to get smaller. So you're going to have to eat someone else's lunch just to survive, or just to stand still. But actually, I think because a lot of the human talent, human capital out there will just sit back. I think it's a prime time for people with plans, ambitions, process, enthusiasm, belief to go out and eat someone else's lunch. And when we come out of whatever's going to happen, it's going to be you're going to be in a much better place for it. But anyway, back to human capital. Now I've vented on talking about the Bank of England. Human capital, Matthew. Human resources, human people. I mean, when I was a lad, it used to be called personnel, right?
Yeah, I've got a little bit of sick in my mouth. I think it might be something to do with that phraseology. Listen, describing other human beings in terms of like them being chattel, human capital. Yeah, we can spend this. We can, it's just horrible. Utterly vile. What a nasty way of thinking about other human beings. Ultimately, yes, there is an exchange of services here, which is you employ people to do a job for you, which to the point that your ex-boss so charmingly put it, but he wasn't wrong. Ultimately, we as employers are employing people. We're giving them money on a monthly basis, whether it's salary or salary plus bonus or salary plus commission. There is a remuneration package, which is a compensation, if you want to look at it like that, for their time and their effort and the services rendered on your behalf. So there is a value that they are supposed to bring to the payroll. They don't just get paid for the sake of it. So we know that, and I can understand why that might lend certain bean counting people to call it capital. But it's just not a nice way of thinking about it. It's not the right way to think about it, because ultimately you get the best out of people if you actually treat them as people. So understand them psychologically, understand what their true motivators are, understand the best about them, in order to be able to make them happy and fulfilled doing good, meaningful work, so they actually feel like they're contributing something. And I think this is where we look at this as a reciprocal relationship, not just I'm paying you to do a job and therefore you must do it. It's also about actually how do you make them feel fulfilled? How do you make them feel like actually they're getting respected and recognized and some dignity for what it is that they do and the value that they add? I
think it's a human resources, human capital. It's whoever the capital or the people are. It's a buyer's market at the moment for them. We've got some comments.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna show that, because we're going to go off on something here. Let me see. We've got say the horrible phrase and I shall appear. That'll be human resource. Yeah, look at that. Hello, Danny. And I love the phrase human resource, because we used to just call it human remains. HR, human remains. Wrong. I know. Bad. Look, you was warned. So, what do we got here? Eddie Young, morning all. Hello, Eddie. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us again. Mark Gladwin, morning. Let me see. Eddie, 80% of statistics are made up. Here we go. This is really quite interesting from Mark, and I think this is a great line. Been trying to get work back in the UK with over 25 years in after-sales customer service. I kept getting told I don't have the experience.
Interesting.
And that is interesting, because, I mean, in Sandler, we've certainly got a couple of things. Something I wanted to bring up earlier is, first off, in response to what Matthew says, you can't manage people en masse. You have to manage them individually. And as Matthew says, make them feel fulfilled individually. And in a big organization, it's hard. No one said it was easy, but if you want to do it right, you've got to do the hard stuff. If you just want to do the easy stuff, well, human capital, right? But I love this because experience. I mean, that's a major thing. Everyone wants experience, right? I would put it out to you that if you're just looking for experience, you've screwed the pooch. You are missing some good stuff out there. Matthew, what do you think?
I think that's absolutely right. The thing about experience is that it's in past tense. It's stuff that's happened in the past. And the second thing is that sometimes it can be an indicator of future success. But just like everything else that in life, what's happened in the past is not necessarily an indicator of future success. So businesses that recruit purely on experience are setting themselves up to fail. I have to say also from a candidate's point of view that actually you can promote more than just your experience. You can also you can promote your fit in other ways. Cultural ways would being the most beneficial one. So your attitudinal approach, your mindset approach, showing your cognitive abilities, your learning habits, your mindset, your growth mindset. Those are the sorts of things that a good quality employer will spot as being the real differentiators and your future indicators of success rather than just experience. The problem with experience is, I've got 20 years of experience, I've got 25 years of experience, I've got 30 years of experience. And that might well be true. Or it might be that you've got 1 year's experience repeated 20 times. And I've seen plenty of CVs that look a whole lot more like a telephone directory than they do look like a CV, because they've got that 1 year repeated over and over and over again, which is not necessarily a great indicator. And I'm not saying that's the case with you, Mark. I'm just saying that this is the sort of thing that can happen. In fact, I'm going to give you a live example. One of my clients works in professional services. A lot of what they work on is PQE, so post-qualification experience. That's what they call it. And they'll look for X number of years. And somebody who, one of my clients who took this person on, they were six years PQE, 6 years post-qualification experience. But it turned out that 3 of those years, 1 of them had been spent on maternity and 2 of them were spent on furlough. So actually there were 3 years PQE. So when they drilled inside it, actually they were not the person they thought they were, just based on purely on experience. So it's a case of having to look at the individual, not just on experience. So what I would say in your case, Mark, they need to go deeper, and it's not about you, mate. It's about the way that they're interpreting your CV. Ask yourself the question: is there any different ways that you can present yourself that might help yourself? Happy to have a conversation with you on a one-to-one about that, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that would be good. And certainly as you said, sometimes you can have people with great experience, and sometimes they can have many years of the same experience, which hardly shows growth. But experience is what we call a lagging indicator in Sandler. It just shows what's happening. And to be fair, I've employed people who had a great future behind them. And just because they've got something does not mean that it's a guarantee of future work. However, and you alluded to this, people who've got the right attitude, know how to get results, show persistence and commitment to getting results, and have a whole load of winning habits that will get them there. You then, as an employer, have to look at these people and say, right, if they've got the intellectual nous, can we in this company give them the skills and experience to be successful in this company? Because whenever you move to a different company, you never have skills and experience that are a perfect fit for that company, because it's a different company, and so you never turn up ever as the perfect article. And certainly, I've heard it in the past when we talk about salespeople and go, well, they should be able to sell. I hired them fully formed. Well, that never happens. I mean, never. So you have to decide if they've got the right attitude, they know how to get results, they do the right behaviors. Should we then look at how we give them the skills and experience to be successful in this organization? Looking at just skills and experience, to me, is very much a mill owner 19th century way of looking at hiring, which are incredible human machines. I just, it's. I mean, if we found a human on Mars, and there was one just standing there, we would revere them. But because there's millions of them here, we think we can pick and choose, and everyone's special. Everyone's very capable, and I get cheesed off about that. People who just look for the experience and they can miss some real winners. And just this last few weeks, I've been working with an organisation who've hired somebody who doesn't have experience in their industry but shows all the other traits. And we're now only a couple of weeks in, knocking it out of the park already. And so experience is not it. So just get what we got. Yes, here's Mark's got another comment in there. Trained advisors will keep trying, agree on culture, promote this, no problem. Yeah, got to keep good. Oh, Nadine. Oh, hello, Nadine. Nice to see you here. Nobody ever matches the job advert criteria. I hired on potential and what I saw in people. Now, Nadine, absolutely fantastic. And it is, future potential, because they were good in the past does not make them any good in our organisation now. Matthew.
Yeah, I think that's right. You've got to look at each organisation as the context within which people are either going to succeed or fail. And having contextual fit is at least as important as any skills or experience that they've developed in the past. So if you're going to break this down and look at it very sensibly, in Sandler, we break it down into sort of three areas. And by the way, apologies to everybody for my terrible drawing, because my drawings really are appalling. But even I can just about draw a triangle. I mean, it's not going to be a good triangle, but I can just about draw a triangle, which is good because in Sandler, almost all of our diagrams start with a triangle. So if you're going to set yourself up for success in hiring, there's really three areas represented by the three sides of this triangle that you want to look at. So the first thing is really your primary function identifiers. Now that's a posh way of saying the things that are non-negotiables for that particular function, for that particular role. So the things that are your absolute essentials. So PFIs, primary function identifiers. These are the skills without which they cannot do the job. Okay, so I mean, you wouldn't hire a doctor, who hadn't got the basic skills of doctoring, diagnosis and prescription, those sorts of things. Then you've got things which are winners' attributes. These are much more about the individual than they are about the role. And your winners' attributes are things like your mindset, the way you show up, your cognitive abilities, much more about the sorts of habits that you typically engage in day to day, because those habits are the things that you do consistently. And the things you do consistently tend to shape and form your life and the way in which you show up in your life. That which you do consistently basically is those are the telltale signs of who you really are, because we tend to judge people on their behaviors, not on their intentions, because behaviors are the best indicator of what those intentions might be. They might not always be the case, but that which you do consistently is your true self, or the best indicator of your true self. And then finally, you've got your team matrix. So if I can put this very bluntly, we did say this is the 18+ warning. Are they going to piss people off? Sorry to be blunt about it, but you don't want to hire people who are going to be really, really culturally toxic, who are just not going to fit in well. I've had people before now who are extremely high performance people. So if you say performance, they're extremely good at what they do. So let's say they are high performance individuals. So high here, okay, and low here. So they're very high performance. But then you look at trust. So basically, they're the sorts of people who they are high performance, high trust. These are your absolute best performers. These ones who live up here. These are the ones who you really want. These are your A players. Then you've got the people who are high performance, low trust. They're the ones who they are going to tread over the broken bodies of their colleagues. They're going to stamp all over the rules. They're going to basically do things their way, but they hit the numbers, so they think they're bulletproof. These people are culturally toxic. They should be absolutely anathema to you, hence my terrible little skull and crossbones. They should here be dragons. They should be the people who you don't have in your organization at all. Actually, high trust, low performance are actually people who you could potentially grow. So they're okay. These ones are just basically a waste of time, so I just ignore them altogether. But does that make sense? Am I explaining
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, no, that was lovely. And if you go back to that drawing, the second drawing, and I really like that, the high performance, low trust. And this comes into culture, and I guess Danny will have stuff to say about this because he's very onto this. But what we're saying, if we allow that sort of thing to proliferate in our organization, that becomes a culture of, we want people who walk over dead bodies who you cannot trust in our organization. And if you try to say that to maybe investors or people who are going to buy your business, or even people who might even think about joining you, that is the culture of your company, you're going to find it hard to hire. And what's more, if that becomes a culture of your company and people don't want it, you're going to find the good people are going to leave, and that's what you're going to be left with. And if you can't put that in your website and be proud of it, or put that in your mission statement, we want to hire low trust individuals who will walk across the dead bodies of their colleagues to get what they want. If you're ashamed of that, you need it out of your business.
Absolutely.
You get what you tolerate. Absolutely. So we're in the last 10 minutes, and gosh, this time has moved. This has moved quickly. Here's the thing: we want A players. I mean, some of the notes I've made here. If you want A players, you've got to manage individually to keep the A players. You've got to watch the culture, as that drawing so nicely said. But certainly, we need to attract A players, but we need to also, the ones that we've got to keep. There we go. Danny does not let us down. Here we go. So how do we keep the A players? We'll look at here we go. The challenge with culture is that it feels abstract and difficult to define. So it's then difficult to use its concrete selling point to particular potential employees or investors. Absolutely.
Can I quote Jim Rohn?
Yeah, go on.
Don't wish that it was easier, wish that you were better. Just because something's difficult doesn't mean that actually we shouldn't be focusing on it. I mean, yes, and I 100% agree with Danny. And I know Danny knows a lot about this stuff and how to actually articulate what a culture is. It feels abstract, but actually it's not abstract. If you look at an organization, its culture. I remember years ago employing a new HR manager, and I'm a big believer in that when you're running a business, the HR person should actually be your number two, whatever you call them, whether you call them people and development director or whatever your particular personal phraseology is. I agree. I'm not a big fan of HR as a phrase, but the reason he got the job was he said for his second interview, he said, look, as part of our second interview, could we do a walk around? Could we just walk around the building? I just want to soak up a bit of the atmosphere and find out how people feel in the building. And I thought, this guy gets it. He absolutely gets it. We walked around, we went down into the warehouse, we went into the warehouse offices, and I just let him just chat with a few people. And I watched the way he was talking to people, and I watched the way he was soaking things up. And firstly, he was a great cultural fit with me just because that was his approach. But the fact is that he was looking for that indefinable something, that quality of culture. Are people even happy here? What is it that gets them out of bed every day? What are their typical behaviors? How do they interact with each other? Because the thing is, daily behaviors leave clues. They leave clues as to what the culture really is. And the culture is not that thing on the wall that says we are very passionate about whatever. Because every corporate bullshit thing that's ever come up with is it all says, oh, we're passionate about this and we're good at that and this is what we stand for and these are our values. And maybe that's even true, but mostly it's bollocks. So,
it's interesting the number of people that walk past those mission statements, and you can see very quickly that the leadership aren't walking and talking that, the staff won't walk and talk that, and it's obvious. And what you'll see is as people walk out the door, they'll hang their lanyard on the mission statements as they leave forever, and that's a real thing, right? But I mean, again.
Danny's just put a brilliant phrase in there, and it's one of his mantras. Absolutely, I love that. That's awesome, Danny. Cracking.
It's number 3. It's number 3. I mean, that's my favourite standard rule. Number 3: no mutual mystification. Right?
Yeah, no, magical, though. This is different. I'm like, culture leaves evidence. I think that's magical. Nice job, Danny. Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it.
I do like that. Culture does leave evidence, and it leaves evidence for everybody. And so we're only 5 minutes into this. I knew we'd just get agitated and move on to stuff. So human capital, human resources, or human talent. What's your favourite?
Number 1, happy bees make tasty honey. Thank you very much, Danny. Very good. So what's my favourite? It's treat human beings. Is my favorite one. It's treating people as human beings, because that's the number 1 thing. So yeah, people and development direction. That's the critical thing. It's about treating people as people, treating them with respect, treating them with dignity, recognizing their status, giving them the opportunity to do good and meaningful work, giving them clear cultural and procedural parameters within which they can operate, then giving them permission within to operate within those parameters as a set of handrails, not handcuffs. So it's not bureaucratic. The process liberates them and liberates their creativity, gives them very clear guidelines within which they can operate, and then supporting them and protecting them, providing they stay within those cultural and value guidelines, and coming down on them like a ton of crap if they then breach the trust and of everybody else, because ultimately, as we've said, you get what you tolerate. Your job is to be the custodian of the culture and making sure that everybody else contributes to that culture in a meaningful and positive way, and do not allow any cultural cancers. Simple as that.
Yeah, and that's right. And then just looking what I say. I mean, I used to work for an engineering company many years ago, big Japanese engineering company, and their mission statement stuck with me because it's a good statement, and it was to the machine, the work of the machine, to man. Well, it's 1933 it came out, but to man, the thrill of further creation. And I think that's it, the thrill of coming to work, the thrill of working and being encouraged. And it is a buyer's market. It is a people market. And we saw a few weeks ago that there was like 570,000 more roles out there than people who were willing to do them. So, and we've got to up our game. We've not only got to keep our best people by doing the right thing around the organisation, but if we want good people in our organisation, we've got to look beyond skills and experiences. We have to treat them with individuals. And my view is, if I was being taken on by a company who says you're not the full shilling yet, you've not got it all. However, you've got these great traits, and we're willing to invest in you in order to perform well in your job. To me, that would be a real switch on for me. And I think good people like that sort of stuff. What have we got here? One of my favourite. Oh, hey, look at this.
There you go. Look at that. There you are. Absolutely spot on.
Two-way trust.
Who knew?
Two-way trust. Is Tony, my old mate from years ago, where I used to work with years ago. I can't. It's been a few years, and I can't really see the picture.
LinkedIn, it's like friends reunited. What can I say?
It is, and I can't tell from that picture, but I knew a Tony Cronin, absolutely wonderful bloke. So we're in the last couple of minutes. Anything else you want to add before we talk about next week? Oh, here we go. I've got one from Mark as well here.
Very quick. Because you put a comment up from Nadine on the screen and we didn't actually comment on it, which was very specific to Generation X, Generation Z. Where do they come from? What are their actual motivations? Absolutely right. And take that even more granular. Don't just work on the generational generics. Let's look at the specifics of what individuals look for as well. Ultimately, human beings are human beings, whatever generation they come from. And so the things that they are concerned about, the things that give them psychological safety, they do typically fall into certain bands, but agreed, there are some generational biases into what those look like. So yeah, people want status and respect and dignity. What does that mean for somebody who's Gen X versus somebody who's a boomer versus somebody who's maybe Gen Z or Gen Y or whatever? It probably means something slightly different, but ultimately that requirement for status and recognition is still it's a base human need. Belonging, connection, autonomy, agency, all of those psychological requirements that every human being's got, they mean slightly different things to different generations, but more important, at a more granular level, it means different things to different individuals. Understand the individual motivation. That's where really good management will come from.
And certainly it's all about individual. It is Tony. It is the Tony I knew from 20 years ago. Look at that. Hello, Tony. I mean, there's some good stuff. We have to work hard to not only keep the best people, but attract the best people. It isn't about skills and experience. Treat people individually, and we haven't even got to the sweary stuff I was hoping to get to today, but maybe that's for another day. We've run over a little bit. Next week, we found a subject. We're going to talk about quiet quitting. Quiet quitting. What the hell does that mean? And do you know anybody who has been quietly quitting? And even, do you know what the hell that means? I have no idea. We're going to work it out next week. We've overrun just a couple of minutes or 1 minute. Great to see you again. If you want to get hold of Matthew, this is how you do it.
You can email me at mdh@sandler.com, or alternatively, you can phone me 07715269724. You can DM me on LinkedIn. You can probably even send me a carrier pigeon.
Yeah, or you could link up with mates from 20 years ago.
There you go. Matthew. Of course, you could always do this. That way.
So my name's Roy Johnson, roy.johnson@sandler.com, 07 867 525 868, 07 867 525 868, or DM me and do all the thing that Matthew recommends. It's been great to be here. It's great to meet up with old mates. And thank you, everyone, for contributing. Silently quitting next week. Take care. That's the Tuesday Chew.
Okay, it's goodbye from him.
It's goodbye from him. Goodbye.
Maybe.
How?